Like, there's Duck Dynasty brand like wine now. Like, what the heck?
Uh,
But yeah, man,
I'm sure it's good.
I would love to never hear the words Duck Dynasty ever again.
Well, John, mark off like half our second half of the podcast.
Oh no.
One thing that was brought up, I thought was really interesting. You were talking about not wanting to pursue the path in history, right? Because you couldn't stand non-adults, basically.
Hmm.
And that kind of ties into something that me and Chase wanted to ask you. Like, what would your approach be to coaching a team, or is that kind of like an age group where you're not willing to coach
Oh
them?
no, like it's I do have a lot of experience coaching teenagers. Like the gym that I worked in before we moved out to California, most of who I was coaching were middle school and high school athletes. That's great, like because they're young, they're hyperactive, and those kids like they were training like because they wanted college scholarships in whatever sport they were pursuing. So like they were very motivated, they were focused for the most part, and they were like moving, they were being active, which is like that's what kids are supposed to do.
Mhm.
Like you can take a great kid and put them in a classroom, and unless they've like been conditioned to be quiet and know their place, like they're probably going to be a little shit. But like put them in a gym setting, like give them some structure and just get them moving, and most of them are great.
In your opinion, what is that best time? Is there a best time to start with them? And then how is the best way to introduce them to powerlifting, Olympic lifting, weights, whatever however you choose.
I generally think that the Russian approach to it is a good one. Basically, how they did it was from the time a kid was like 5 or 6, they would be playing sports and doing just like general physical preparedness stuff, basically playing. Um, they would teach them like basic movement patterns, like uh, how to squat, how to run, how to jump, stuff like that. Um, so they would start like ingraining how to throw, rotational things, and just so they could start like ingraining those movement patterns at a young age, where you have more neuroplasticity. Those movement patterns are more malleable. You can learn and master movement patterns quicker. And then, but other than that, just basically have them be active, build a very broad skill base that you can draw on later. Have them, definitely don't specialize in a sport at a very young age. Just play everything. Any like dedicated physical training should be aimed at just developing those motor patterns that they'll use later. And then when a kid is kind of hitting middle school age, trim it back to like 2 or 3 sports, the ones that they might want to specialize in. And that's when they would start doing some more stuff with like external resistance. But at that point, it's still all about mastering those movement patterns, but it's about mastering them with a little bit of loading. But I mean, it's not like they're going to get really robust hypertrophy at that point. So nothing that's close to failure, nothing that causes technical breakdown. Um, just, you know, again, just the same basic movement patterns, squats. If they wanted to be a weightlifter, that's when you would start introducing cleans and snatches. Um, Deadlifts, hinging activities, but again, not with challenging loads, not close to failure, and still trying to build that base of just general physical preparedness. And then when a kid's 16, 17, that's when they would want to start focusing more on one specific sport. But most of the year would still be spent just building that general base. And that's when loading would get heavier. That's when the energy systems work would become more specific to the sport that they wanted to do. But most of the time would be spent building those physical characteristics. And then when they're 20, 21, 22, starting to hit that competitive peak, those peak years to compete in a sport, hopefully by that point you've built an adequately large base of muscle mass, of aerobic conditioning, of specific energy systems needs for the sport you're pursuing. And that's when the shift moves kind of away from that to maintenance of those physical characteristics, maybe improvement in the off season, but most of the time dedicated to mastering sports skills.